Hello, everybody. Welcome to today, Friday, October 17th, 2025, where we commemorate the memorial of St. Ignatius of Antioch. And before I reflect upon the Holy Gospel today, let us reflect upon St. Ignatius of Antioch. And so one of the biggest things that we should know out of St. Ignatius of Antioch is the fact that even though there are people who wanted him to deny Christ, St. Ignatius of Antioch was very determined. And so he chose to not deny Christ. And as a result of that, he was sentenced to death in Rome. And so one of the things that we can learn from St. Ignatius of Antioch is the fact that each and every one of us here has a calling, whether or not each and every one of us here should follow Christ. And all of us should make that decision at this very present moment, because we're living at this present life right now where all of us here are preparing to build up God's kingdom. So how do we continue to follow Christ? We have to let ourselves be transformed, as I reflected upon yesterday. Let us transform ourselves so that the Word of God can really strengthen each and every one of us as we strive to continue to live the fruits to which God has set for each and every one of us here. And so, another saint that is similar, and I don't know the English version, but in Vietnamese version, it's Thánh Thomas Kien, but one, which is basically Saint Thomas Kien, I don't know the English name, but one of the things that he's also known for, in similarity with Saint Ignatius of Antioch, is the fact that they both chose to not deny Christ. So if we reflect upon Saint Thomas Kien, one of the things that he does was refuse to step over the cross. And because of this, he was martyred. And so each and every one of us are called to accept the faith to which Jesus has brought forth amongst each and every one of us here. And then in today's gospel, Jesus focuses on the theme of two things. First of all, it's honesty. And then the second theme is to strive to not follow the paths of the devil. And so, let us talk about not following the paths of the devil for just a moment. As we all know, all of us here can be able to distinguish when it is the works of God and when it is the works of the devil. So Jesus, at the beginning of today's Holy Gospel, had mentioned about not following the leprosy of the Pharisees. And what he means by that is, don't follow their example as to how they do not accept and acknowledge Jesus. And so each and every one of us are called to reflect upon how we are living our life in union with Christ. Do we continue to follow Christ, or do we continue to deny ourselves before Christ, which is denying that Christ is present amongst each and every one of us? That is the definition that I'm trying to get towards. So each and every one of us here are called to continue to strive to follow Christ, as Christ has a mission set for each and every one of us here. And so, with that, let's talk about honesty for a second. Because if we reflect upon the Pharisees and the scribes, like in various gospels, Jesus had noted that they preach, but they don't follow the example. They instruct others what to do, yet they don't even lift a finger to help other people. And this ties into the idea of what we call leadership. As a leader, one of the crucial aspects to becoming an effective leader is being able to help your team out. And if you instruct your team and they don't know what to do, yet you don't lift a finger, then how would you know the struggles that your teammate is going through? The same here. The Pharisees and the scribes love to instruct others based on the rules and doctrines to which they established in humanic society. Yet, they don't really continue to follow what they preach. And so each and every one of us are called to practice what we say, what we teach. We need to put that into action. And so that is the core message behind this. Because what happens in the dark always comes to light. In other words, anything we do in private is going to eventually be revealed. Because we cannot hide anything from God. No matter how hard we try, we can't hide anything. All of us here are going to reveal ourselves to God. And so, because God created each and every one of us to the extent that He knows each and every one of us very well, both on a personal level and on the knowledge level. Everything God knows each and every one of us. And so what does it mean to become honest? Because honesty, it is not easy. Because there are times where all of us are going to struggle through the actions of other people. We are afraid about the fact that other people is going to judge us. But do we ever consider what God's plan there is for us? How God is striving to work through each and every one of us? Have we ever taken that into deep consideration? This is the questions to which Jesus has asked each and every one of us. Do we do everything according to God's plan? Because God is going to know everything. And we ourselves cannot hide that fact. That's why whenever a kid lies about not drinking water when he clearly did in front of other people, eventually it will be revealed. So let us not lie and be honest. Because the more honest we are, not only are we going to become a good person, but we're going to be able to build a good and closer relationship with God and with other people just by being really honest with ourselves. How often do we become honest with ourselves? We struggle through that. And so God inspires each and every one of us to let Him convert each and every one of us. Let us open up our hearts so that God can work through each and every one of us, so that we can be transformed, so that we can strive to continue to follow Christ. As this is the ultimate journey to which God has set upon each and every one of us. Let us take that into deep consideration as we strive to move forward in our life. And why do we become honest in school? Let's just say, for example, when we're when we're in school or whenever we're in the workforce, we have to show others what we know so that we can allow others to help each and every one of us. Because if we don't show what we know, eventually, when it comes time to when we are tested upon the knowledge of what we learned, we're not going to be able to get anything. So it is always important to be honest with yourselves, because it's going to eventually come to light. And so Jesus also reminds each and every one of us in today's gospel not to be afraid. Why do we often become afraid of being ourselves? Why are we afraid of trying to follow God? God is love. God is not going to hate on each and every one of us. God, despite many times that we sin, God is not mad at us. But instead, He wants us to turn ourselves back towards Him. But how do we allow ourselves to turn back towards Him? I want to leave that question to you guys, because this is something that really is going to determine the faith, in addition to being able to understand what we are doing in our life. We need to ask ourselves that question. And so, with that being said, all of us here needs to be more brave when it comes to following the will of God. Because all of us here strive to want to enter into the kingdom of heaven. But to enter into the kingdom of heaven, we need to continue to follow the will of God with good intention with our hearts. And it isn't easy. That's why God is there for each and every one of us. And despite what other people are going to do to each and every one of us, we should strive to never, ever be afraid. We need to stand up for our faith. Because that is when we are bringing God's love and presence to not only ourselves, but to others. The more we strive to want to listen to God, the more God is going to reveal Himself to each and every one of us. Let us take that into consideration, because guess what? We are worth more than many sparrows of our hair. We are worth it to the point where God calls each and every one of us. He desires our own hearts. He desires each and every one of us to come closer to Him. Because despite many of the hairs that are going to turn gray and go away, God is going to want each and every one of us to come back to Him. Because we should not be worried, as God will strive to work to each and every one of us. For Republic speak,